Colour contrast or contrast of hue is produced when different colours are placed side by side. It's at its strongest when the colours are fully saturated and weakens when the colours are desaturated or raised or lowered in value. The primary and secondary colours produce very strong colour contrasts and create a vibrant jazzy effect, as can be seen in this painting by Stuart Davis. Analogous colours, sometimes called harmonious colours, are ranges of colour which are close to one another in the colour model. For example, these oranges from yellow-orange through to red are analogous, as is this range of desaturated blues. It's a safe option to use harmonious colours in your work, but usually your paintings will benefit from even a small amount of complementary contrast. Complementary pairs are found opposite one another on the colour wheel, and when mixed will generally neutralise each other. Complementary pairs are not just confined to the perimeter of the colour wheel, but all colours have complementary pairs. The ideal complementary pair for any given colour is the colour exactly opposite it in the colour model. For example, the complementary pair for this red tint is a green tint, and the pair for this orange shade is this blue shade. The effect complementary pairs have on one another will vary depending on their value. Here we see orange surrounded by blue. The grey square on the right shows that they have the same value. The effect of the blue is to enhance the hue of the orange. When we add white to the orange, the effect changes. The orange appears to be more luminous and seems to come forward. A different effect results when the orange becomes a shade. Now it has a sombre glow and appears lighter in value than it actually is. This time the blue is a shade and the orange a tint. The blue is very deep, while the luminosity of the orange is enhanced even more. When we reverse the situation, the blue comes forward and the orange looks dark and appears to recede. Intensity will also alter the effect of complementary pairs. This is fully saturated red-violet against yellow-green. It's loud. When the colours are desaturated, however, they lose their brashness and are more pleasing to the eye. Here, the yellow-green is fully saturated and the red-violet desaturated. When the two examples are seen together, it's hard to believe the red-violets are the same colour. On the left, the red-violet looks warmer and larger, while on the right it's dominated by the yellow-green and seems darker and appears to recede. This time the yellow-green is desaturated and the red-violet is at full intensity. The red-violet looks bright and expansive. When compared to both colours at full intensity, however, we see that the red-violet, while looking even more intense in hue, now appears to recede. Another factor to consider is quantity. Equal amounts of complementary pairing usually appear discordant, as can be seen in this yellow-violet pairing. When the size of the yellow is increased or decreased, the effect changes and can be more satisfying. As we have seen, the effect complementary pairs have on one another depends on the hue, value, quantity, and saturation of the colours. The most effective use of complementary colours in your painting will vary depending on these factors. Red looks best when scattered across a green field, as in this picture of coral tree flowers, and a small amount of yellow will make a big difference to violet. This picture of a budding hydrangea flower is a good example of red-violet, yellow-green complementaries, while this sunset is a range of blue-violet and yellow-orange. Note that in this picture the colours are not pure. The violets are shades and the yellows tints. Nevertheless, it's the effect of complementary contrast that makes the sky really glow. The strongest light-dark contrast is between black and white, and when the values are shifted into the greys, the impact of the pattern is diminished. Underlying value contrast, sometimes called chiaroscuro, can give a painting strength. In this example, we can see the strong black and white pattern behind the image. Now the image is in grayscale, which shows the true value contrast, and here the colour is restored. While not essential to a composition, a strong value contrast can make a big difference to a painting. Here is another example. Let's take a look at the underlying principles. For convenience, let's number the grayscale. In this example, I have used 1 for white, ranging to 10 for black. We can establish the value of a colour by comparing it to the grayscale. Red and green are around 5, blue-violet is the darkest at 9, and yellow the lightest at 2. The other colours fall somewhere in between. If we completely desaturate the colours, it can be seen that this is true. So what happens when greys and hues are contrasted with black? The strongest contrast is black and white, and a white square on a black background looks larger than a black square on a white background. Here the white is changed to yellow with a value of 2, and the illusion persists. Against black, yellow is vibrant and highly visible, a warning. On the other hand, on black, blue-violet with a value of 9 recedes, and the black square on blue-violet looks larger. It follows that the closer in value a colour is to a neutral colour, the less dramatic the contrast. Here the black is replaced with white. The blue-violet is very recessive and looks much smaller on the white background. When we exchange the blue-violet for yellow, it looks washed out and the yellow recedes. Here's yellow on both black and white for a direct comparison. When a colour is contrasted with a grey of equal value, its hue is enhanced. The grey supports the colour in much the same way as a complementary. Notice how the yellow on the white background looks duller. This is green and grey. The grey square surrounded by green seems to take on a pinkish colour. This is an illusion caused by simultaneous contrast, which we will cover in more detail later, but it is the reason why greys of equal value enhance the hue of the contrasting colour. As we have seen, strong value contrasts are good for establishing pattern in composition. So it seems paradoxical that value contrast is also the primary factor in establishing form. The illusion of three-dimensional form is clearly established in this computer-generated image. If the texture and the shadows are removed, the illusion of form remains. If colour is removed, it still remains, and it's not until we remove value contrast that the image looks flat. Even when local colour is restored to the image, the flatness persists. Complementary contrast is further enhanced if there is a strong warm-cool contrast between the colours. This picture with its predominantly cool colours looks dull and uninteresting, but when the original warm colours are restored, the image comes to life. These pictures are good examples of warm-cool contrast, where a relatively small amount of warm colour enhances a large area of cool colour. Warm-cool modulations are also very effective. This cool desaturated green comes to life when it is modulated with a warm desaturated orange. Often cloudy skies exhibit beautiful warm, cool contrasting effects. Simultaneous contrast is the effect colours have on one another. In this example, a grey bar of uniform value looks darker on white than it does on black. Similarly, these two grey squares look different, but they do in fact have the same value. When the backgrounds are changed to orange and blue, the effect is quite different. Against orange, the grey looks bluish and recedes, while against the blue it looks warm and comes forward. Simultaneous contrast can be quite dramatic. Believe it or not, in this example, the reds are exactly the same colour. These effects, essentially optical illusions, occur because our eyes tire of looking at extreme values and bright colours and begin to produce opposite values and colours as compensation. This compensation will persist even when the colour is removed. This is called successive contrast. Watch the grey square in the middle of this red-violet for a short time. Now when the colour is faded away, we are left with a yellow-green after image. Sometimes the after image isn't immediately apparent, but it will appear after a second or so, and it's important to keep looking at the grey square. Let's try it with orange. This time the afterimage is blue. The afterimage colours are complementary. This time let's try black. Now the afterimage is white. In this startling example, the true colours of the Australian Aboriginal flag are revealed only when it's gone. Contrast of quality occurs when similar hues of different intensity are set side by side. In this example, colours of increasing intensity are being added to the image until a patch of bright red is surrounded by desaturated reds and shades of red. Note that the degraded colours lend support to the fully saturated red and make it look even brighter. Complementaries tend to balance one another, but this balance is lost as soon as the contrasting colours are no longer opposite one another on the colour wheel. Discordant colours can be used to create vibrant and exciting effects, and colour balance can be restored by using discords from either side of the complementary. These combinations are called triads, and these tetrads.